Hey, what's up? My name's Justin. Welcome to 65 Drums. Today I want to take a look at used electronic drum sets online. There are a lot of websites where you can buy used drum sets from, TD50s all the way down to like Alesis DM Lite drum sets. And a lot of times you'll save around 30 to 50% on these drum sets just because they're used. Now the problem is not every used drum set is a good deal. Sometimes people try to rip you off, and then sometimes people don't know what they have and you could like even resell it and make a profit. So I thought it would be really cool to just look through these, and I want your opinions too on all these drum sets. Do you think it's a buy or do you think you shouldn't buy it at all and it's a ripoff? Let's get into it. And our first electronic drum set is absolutely nuts. This is the strangest electronic drum set I've seen in a very long time. So as you can plainly see, this used to be an Alesis drum set of some sort, probably around $800 to $1,000. So we start off with a drum set that cost maybe $1,000, and then he made a $3,250 upgrade to that $1,000 drum set. So this drum set probably cost the guy like $4,000 or more. So this drum set is honestly hilarious because you got these wimpy crash cymbals, you got these smaller toms, and then all of a sudden you have like the most expensive drum module there is, the most expensive electronic snare there is. It's absolutely nuts. And sooner or later, someone who knows what he's looking at will go buy this drum set, sell it for parts on eBay, and probably make $800 or $1,000. Okay, so let's move on to something a little bit cheaper for a change. This is the Yamaha Dtx Express 3, and this is selling for $500. Now, when trying to figure out whether or not this is a good deal or a bad deal, it's interesting because it originally sold for somewhere around $800, and now it's only gone down to $500. So I feel like it could be a $400 buy, and that would really make it worth buying. So I'm kind of lukewarm on it, but I'll put a pass on this drum set. I will say, if you're thinking about buying this or the current $500 Yamaha drum set, that thing doesn't have a kick drum tower, and it doesn't have as large of pads as this, I believe. So this one would be a buy over that one, but because this drum set is so old, I feel like it should be sold for like $450 or $400, and that would make it a buy for me. Moving on to the next drum set, we have a used Roland Td9 Electronic Drum. This is selling for $1,000 even, and this drum set, this has me kind of conflicted, honestly. As you can plainly see by just looking at the drum module, I have no idea how they made this mistake, but this is a Roland TD8, and they called it the TD9. Now, this is an older drum set. This came out in the very early 2000s, so this is potentially a 16-year-old drum set. So this is pretty darn old, and so that should be factored in how much you're willing to pay for the thing. So as you can see, it's got all mesh toms, mesh snare, it's got the mesh kick drum, it's got nice cymbals, and a clear indication that this is not a TD9. You can obviously see that they're using just some sort of standard stock rubber pad for the hi-hat. Roland used to do that a lot in the early 2000s with their electronic drum sets. Also a dead giveaway for older Roland pads. You see that giant plastic body around the pad. Yeah, now they're kind of slimmed down and they're usually black, and so that's how you can tell it's a little bit older. So if we're going to give this a buy or a sell, I would give it a hesitant buy just because it's hard to find all mesh pads and a mesh kick drum and nice quality cymbals for $1,000. You're not going to find this in a new factor unless you're buying it from like Alesis, and the pad quality won't be quite as high as this drum set. The drum module is kind of old. The sounds are very, very dated, so you're probably going to want to use this with drum software. If you do buy this to use it with drum software, then this is a decent buy. I wish it was slightly cheaper, but it's like a lukewarm buy for me. So moving on to the next drum set, we have a used Alesis DM10 Studio Mesh drum set. Now this drum set originally costed somewhere around $1,000, and this one is selling used for $800. So just the fact that you're only saving $200 on a pretty used electronic drum set, I would have to give this drum set a pass. If you take a look at that ride cymbal, this is what happens to the Medley type cymbals. You start to get like that wear, that sort of white marking on the rubber. That's a natural thing that happens when you start using cheaper rubber like that. The one great thing about this drum set though, I gotta say, props to whoever upgraded those mesh heads. If you take a really close look at the weave on these mesh heads, it's using a 3-ply material, the same kind of weave that you'll see on a Billy Blast drum head, the one I have, or a Prism 3-ply. There's another company, I can't remember its name, that also uses a similar weave to this. Pros and cons of that mesh head is that it snags easily, so that's bad, but it does have a nice feel. It is the tad bouncy, but it just feels better than a stock Alesis, mesh head. That's the one problem I have with a lot of Alesis drum sets. Just because they have large sizes doesn't mean they necessarily feel feel better. Sometimes they just feel a little bit wimpy because of the mesh heads that they're using. But you can actually breathe new life into Alesis pads if you change out the mesh head for something that feels a little bit nicer to play on. But like I said, because you're only saving 200 bucks, I don't feel like it's a good buy. Okay, so moving on to the next drum set, we have something that's kind of rare and strange. We have a used Alesis DM Pro drum set for $450. Now this has some components that I've actually never seen before. These cymbals right here from Alesis, I literally didn't know that Alesis made those style of pads right there. At first I thought that they were like the Hard Dynamics cymbal pads, because my uncle actually has a Hard Dynamics drum set with a Td9, and it has cymbals that look really similar to that except with a different logo. Well anyway, this thing has all mesh pads for about $450, but the drum set is pretty darn old. You'd have to play it to know if it's still in good condition, and I don't know the triggering performance of these pads. That module right there, people still use that darn thing. It was actually, I believe the DM Pro was one of the top selling drum modules of all time. I don't know if it still has that record or not, but it sold a lot of units back in its day. And it seems to have like a very nice chrome rack on this thing. $450 for something that's so old, I'm a little iffy on this, so I would personally give it a pass. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. All right, so let's take a look at some individual pads here. So this one is a used Yamaha Dtx Extreme. Not a Dtx Extreme 2 or Dtx Extreme 3 or something. This is the original Yamaha Dtx Extreme Pad. This is using an actual acoustic drum head. It's funny because you usually see the Remo logo on Roland electronic drum sets. This time you're starting to see a Roland logo on a Yamaha drum set. So like I said, it's going to give you a real drum head, which means it's going to be pretty darn loud. You'd buy this because you already have the drum set and you want to expand it. You probably wouldn't buy this and start building out components individually, especially at this price, because it's selling for 230 bucks. So this is for someone that really wants to look, or maybe they want to collect it or something. For most people, this would be a pass. Okay, so moving on to the next pad, we have a used Roland CY14C. This is going for about 250 bucks. And unfortunately, I gotta say this is a ripoff. Just a very quick search on eBay, the very first page, you'll see a CY14C going for $169. So again, always check prices on other websites to make sure you're not being ripped off. The CY14C is a very popular cymbal. Tons of people buy this. Roland cymbals, unfortunately, they're hard to get at really low prices just because they last a long time and they're very popular and they trigger well. Okay, so moving on to the next drum set, we have a Yamaha Dtx Extreme, 1,150 bucks. This thing looks kind of nuts, I'm not gonna lie. You got two toms that are white, and then you have one tom that's yellow, and then a snare that's yellow. You got a white kick drum that's got a really nice kick drum shell there. You got a very old drum module, the original Dtx Extreme, and the older style cymbals. And this thing is going for just way too much money in my opinion. You could buy this and like collect it or something, but I feel like if you're going to buy this to use it, 1,150 bucks, that's a pass for me personally. This is very unique. This is what happens when you start looking at used gear. You find some very strange pieces out there. Okay, so moving on to the next drum set, we have a used Alesis Crimson. So right off the gate, you can see that the snare drum rim right there is worn, but overall the drum set doesn't look like it's in terrible condition. For 650 bucks, I feel like this is a pretty darn fair price. Yeah, so I would give this a buy if you really want an Alesis Crimson. I personally wouldn't buy it myself, but as far as value for the cost, I feel like it is kind of worth it. To be clear, this isn't the Alesis Crimson 2, the newer version, but when this originally sold, it was selling for around 1,000 bucks, so I feel like this is an okay price. Okay, so moving on to the next drum set, we have a used Roland Td9. This is a base model, so no mesh toms, unfortunately. I really don't see why they're charging this much for the drum set. You can buy a Roland TD11 brand new right now for somewhere around 900 bucks. Who knows where it's been, and you're only saving 50 bucks. So I don't really see why anyone would buy this. Now, the one good thing about this drum set is that it does have an upgraded kick drum tower. This one is all mesh. I think it came from like a Roland TD8 actually. And so this one is nicer than what came originally with this drum set. That does raise up the value a little bit, just not to the point where it's worth almost 900 bucks in my opinion. Now, just so you guys know, the TD9 is not the previous version of the TD11. The previous version of the TD11 was actually the TD4 drum set. The next version of the TD9 was actually the TD15, which was later replaced by the TD25. Roland naming schemes can be a little bit complicated, unfortunately. Okay, so let's move on to the next drum set. This is a used Pintec Road Pro with the TD20X drum module. Now, this is selling for a lot of money. You're probably wondering why. 2,800 bucks. You know, that doesn't really look like a $2,000+ drum set. Well, originally, all the parts here, this probably cost somewhere around like $3,000 to $4,000. So they lowered it a bit, and that's where the price is right now. So on paper, this is technically an okay price, but in practice, I don't think anyone's going to buy it for this price. They might eventually have to lower it to like I don't know, 1,900 bucks before it actually sells. That's just a wild guess on my part. I would personally give it a pass. I feel like it's just selling for too much money here. Moving on to the next drum set, we have something that looks way more interesting. This is a used Hard Dynamics Professional 6.4 electronic drum set. This is going for $1,900 right now. And man, this drum set does look sweet. You got the metal cymbals and you got little rubber pads on it, so it sort of like makes it a metal cymbal but also rubber at the same kind, sort of like halfway between the two. You got large mesh pads here. You got a Roland Td9 drum module. Is this drum set worth 1,900 bucks? I feel like it's right on the edge right there. For some people, this would be a pass. For some people, this would be a thumbs up. For me, I personally wouldn't buy this drum set. I'd wait for it to go a little bit lower. And the only reason why I say that is because that drum module, the TD10, is pretty darn old. Maybe if that was like a TD30, no, not a TD30. If it was a TD20, I would definitely buy it. For some people, this will be a good buy. For me personally, I just wouldn't buy it. But it is a really nice looking electronic drum set with a decent rack, large pads, and metal cymbals. Okay, so moving on to the next drum set, one of the best deals I've seen in a very long time, a Roland TD11 for 600 bucks. And right away, you can see this is definitely not a Roland TD11. Whenever you see that style of drum module and it's black, that's when it's a TD11. When you see a silver version, that is the TD15. So this is a TD15K, and if you bought this used on like eBay or something, it'd probably be selling for like $1,000 or more. You're getting it for $600. This is an incredible deal. All right, so moving on to the next drum set, we have a Pearl Epro Live drum set for $786. Now, if it was me personally, I'd buy this as like a jumping off point, and then, you know, upgrade the module and the cymbals first, and then slowly maybe switch everything over to mesh. But right off the gate, I have something playable, I have something that looks acoustic, and something I could take on stage and will look nice. Of course, I wouldn't use that module on stage, but I would probably use it with drum software. Moving on to the next kit, we have a vintage Roland electronic drum set. Now, by looking at this photo, I feel like it's a Roland Alpha drum set with some newer electronic cymbals. So for 500 bucks, if you're collecting, this is definitely worth buying. You don't buy this because you actually want to play it live or practice on it, because these pads won't feel that amazing and they're really old and stuff. But if you want something that just looks really cool, or if you want to collect something, this might be worth the money, but it's a very niche product. And then the final drum set on this list is this low-grade Simmons beginner electronic drum set. It probably originally cost like $250, $300-ish. And he's asking 100 bucks or best offer. And if you can't sell it, he literally says in the description that if you can't sell it, it's going in the trash. Hey, by the way, guys, if you like this style of video, if you like looking at different used electronic drum sets and discussing whether or not they're worth buying or passing on, let me know, because I might make this into a series if you guys really enjoy it. Hey, let me know what you guys think of each one of these drum sets. Vote down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in a few.